Did anyone see last night's ITV drama, Appropriate Adult? It's a two-part series about the notorious murderer Fred West and his relationship with trainee social worker Janet Leach. And this is what happened last night. Now, it has created an awful lot of debate. Some critics have said it's not appropriate to make dramas about such horrendous true life stories because it could further distress the families who were involved. But actor Dominic West, who plays Fred, disagrees, and he says it's an intelligent and respectful programme, but nevertheless provocative look at an aspect of our society that is very present and, if anything, is getting worse. So, ladies, do you think that heinous crimes, like, obviously, Fred and Rosemary West's should be kept in the past?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, I've made no... Well, it's not a secret. I mean, I've talked openly about my love of those compelling documentaries featuring, you know, serial killers such as the likes of these two. Because I'm interested, not in remotely glorifying it, but I'm interested in the psychology and the psyche behind these criminals, particularly those of couples like, you know, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley and Fred and Rosemary West, where you find these two people who somehow come together and commit together these appalling crimes. So I was curious to watch it, partly because two good friends of mine, Janet Horsfield and Amanda Isaacs, were the brilliant makeup team on this, which I have to say, regardless of anybody's view, was absolutely superb. So I'd known about this drama for some time, and I remember them saying that they were concerned about it at first, but then sort of reassured me that it was a story worth telling. So I was sort of aware of what I was going to see. But the reaction that threw me was that Tim, I sat down, put Louis to bed last night, who hadn't been too good, bless him, so he went off to bed. I sat down to watch it, and Tim's violent reaction to it really threw me. I can't believe you're going to watch this. And I went, whoa, 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 whoa. I said, you don't know anything about it. It's from the, you know, the perspective of Janet Leach, the appropriate adult, da-da-da-da-da. And he was absolutely horrified and went actually storming off to bed, saying, you know, that the names of these people, yes, of course, they may be mentioned if she's done anything in jail, but they should not be kept in the public thing. So it kind of made me a little bit defensive, but whatever. But I watched it, and I did find it compelling. I found it disturbing in the way that Fred West was clearly a very manipulative and at times charming person. I heard a quote from Paul, the son of Janet Leach, today, who obviously wasn't very happy with it. He said it destroyed the family.
I've got it here, actually. Paul Leach, who was 18 at the time it all happened, he said, "It sickens me to the core that this programme has been made. It's vile. The past should be left in peace." And Mum, Janet Leach, has been collaborating with the producers. He says, that's simply unbelievable. I'm having nightmares all over. It feels like 1994 all over again.
Well, you know, and so you have to take that on board.
I totally agree with you in the fact that I thought it was brilliantly acted. I thought it was respectfully done. It still made me feel sick.
Yeah.
It was so disturbing. I couldn't watch the second part if I wanted to. And I think, really, we have to look at the families of the victims. They are still hurting. They are still feeling it. It's very... In terms of time, I think it's probably, what, 20 years, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
It's still very recent, isn't it? And I think those families, hearing that... If I was there, I put myself in that position. If I was there, hearing the name of that daughter or that girl and going... That was part of my life, and you're making a drama from it. If it had been a documentary and it had been footage...
There have been several brilliant documentaries.
Yeah, and you could have watched that, but if it was a drama, it was so close and so real, I thought it was very disturbing.
But it wasn't... What I thought was particularly clever was that the way they used the appropriate adult as a device to give the information to us, because just by the very nature of the role that she had to play, she was dispassionate.
Was it a device to excuse telling the story,
No, it wasn't.
do you think?
I don't think they made any excuses. I thought... It was a drama, yes, but it didn't have a writer's spin on it or a director's spin on it by the very fact that it was mostly set in an interview room where you had fact after fact after fact. It meant that no one could kind of glamorise anything. You were given the straight facts, and the fact that Dominic West played it as if, like most sort of people like serial killers don't actually know that they're doing anything wrong. She was the conscience. I'm not saying they should have done it, because I do actually believe that these things perhaps ought to stay in the past, and maybe it is too soon to have made it. But the fact that I think they made it very responsibly, because she was the conscience, because they didn't say that it was right or wrong. I felt that they handled it.
She was drawn into his web, though, because she was a very fractured human being herself.
Can I tell you why I think it's important? I think it's important because it's historical, and I know that that, you know, a lot of people were saying that he didn't seem like a baddie, like the devil with horns and a flowing cape. Those monsters aren't. And I think it's important that people are able to see that.
Yes.
And also Janet Leach's,
anyway.
but Janet Leach's involvement in this I found interesting. As being part of history, I had no idea that she was the person that made him confess.
Yeah.
So I think that needs to be out there as
I
well.
understand that, but I'm like Sherry. I watched it and I felt sick.
Yeah.
Particularly when they went back to the house. I felt wretched, to be honest, because at the time, obviously, we all read in the papers and we saw the photographs and we heard about all of these dismembered young women who'd, you know, just been tortured, and it was so horrendous. I felt sick. I won't be watching part 2. I thought it was done respectfully. And you know, should it belong to the past? The only thing that I would say is that with having 2 teenagers, got 14 and a 19-year-old, Katie and Cameron, and there's a lot of modern history that they don't know. They wouldn't necessarily watch a documentary, but possibly would. They didn't watch this, but they possibly would watch a drama. So I won't. Would you be watching part 2, Sherry?
No, I won't. And I don't think we can sit and intellectualise the reasons for making a very good drama with a very good reason, and the story was great. And those families are real people sitting at home with those terrible memories. So whatever, you know, the appropriate...
And the portrayal is so brilliant
Yes,
by Dominic
but
West that
absolutely,
people have said...
totally,
Sherry, isn't there something to be said for also reminding people, not frequently, but infrequently, what monsters these people were? If their names are never mentioned again, it means they're almost getting away with
maybe
it.
in 20 years' time, but those families sitting at home really don't want to have to listen to that. I don't think so, anyway. That would be my take if I was that family, knowing that my daughter had been murdered by that man.
Yes, if anybody that we knew had been
I
sadly one of
just
the
think
victims, it would have been
so
horrendous.
We have had an email, I won't give the name, in from someone who says that they were a best friend of one of the victims, and they said it was very difficult to watch, and they're not really sure that it should have been made. So,
And
you know,
why should they have to sit at home and watch it? You could say they don't have to watch it, but nevertheless, all the press and everybody's covered in it, so...
Maybe it should have been made, but it was too soon.
Too soon.
Well, OK. Well, thank you very much for that, girls. Now I'm again, but in just a few minutes. But if you were Jessie Wallace and you'd split up with your fiancé, would you still go on the holiday that would have been your honeymoon? Talking about that after the break.